Everyone, and welcome back to the next lesson of our Java series. So today we are diving into one of the most exciting and useful part of the coding, which are loops in Java, right? Uh, and loop, you might have heard about it, what it means. So ever found yourself doing the same thing over and over and over again, like counting the steps, or maybe folding your laundries, or you are sending the same invitation email to multiple peoples, right? So you are sending one email at a time. Well, computers are built to handle repetitions like that, but way faster than the way we do it, right? And that's where the Java loops get into the picture, right? That's where they are useful. All right. So by end of this video, my goal is to make sure that you understand what loops are, why they are useful, and what are the different type of a loop you will use in your Java, right? So what are the loops, right? In a simple terms, what it means. So just to keep it simple, a loop is just a way to repeat a block of a code as many times as needed. For example, if I ask you to print one, for example, 5 times, so what you're going to do is 1 1 1 1 1, right? You are basically doing the same thing over and over and over again. Or if I look into the Java perspective, right? If I have to print something, so you will say print and then let's say hello. And if I have asked you to print hello 10 times, you have to repeat the same statement 10 times, right? This looks okay, but imagine that you have to do the same thing probably 100 times or 1,000 times, and especially when you do the programmings or when you are working on some logic, right? You have to do the same thing 100 times, 1,000 times, or even 1,000,000 times. Can you do that? No, right? It's the number one, it's tedious. Number two, you don't know, right? You have to keep counting out those one, and that's exactly where the loops are made to solve this problem, right? With a loop, you can write that logic once and let Java repeat it for you. It's like, okay, you have a button, or let's say a repeat button, and you're using your code techniques to create that one. Okay, so the question is how loops work, right? So basically there are three main types or three components of a loop. Number one in that component is, we call it as initialization. Okay, what it means is, this is where we initialize our logic, what needs to be done. For example, I'm saying I have to do some work, let's say 5 times. So this is your initialization, right? Then you basically have a condition. So condition is nothing but it tells me when I should stop repeating the same task. So for example, if I say when I is less than equal to 5, stop it. So that is my condition, right? And then the third core component is the increment. Okay. For example, I'm saying I plus plus. So when I'm starting it once, I will say, okay, plus it. So that goes to number 2, so and so forth, right? So think of this like a race. You start at the starting point, right? This is your starting point, right? And then you keep on running until you are at the end point. So this is your end point. And then you basically, when you are doing a race, right, you are taking a one step at a time. So these are your steps in the race. All right. And that's how a loop basically progress. The question is, why loops? All right. So number one is, it makes your code short. And as you have understood, right, if I have to print same thing 10 times, I don't have to write it 10 times. I'm gonna write it once and I will use my loop to repeat it 10 times. Number two is, your code become cleaner. Okay. And number three is, it's basically easier to update, right? So let's say if tomorrow someone asks you, hey, you are doing these things 5 times in your code, can you do it 100 times? What you have to do is, where it's saying I is less than equal to 5, you will say simply I is less than equal to 100. That's all. That's what you need, right? And you should be good to go. So when it comes to Java, And I'm going to cover these in more details, and I'm going to cover them individually in the each topic, right? So there are three types of a loop. Okay, types, if I call it as, number one is, I will call it as a for loop. Okay, so this is used when we know how many times to repeat, right? I know that, okay, I have to repeat it, let's say 5 times, so I can always say I is less than equal to 5. I know that number up front, right? Then I have a while loop, as its name suggests, until unless a condition is met, it keep on repeating, right? So you are not sure about how many times I have to repeat. It depends upon a condition. As soon as the condition meet, you basically stop that one. In for loop, you know the numbers of repetition. In while loop, you don't know. You say, okay, when, as soon as the condition is met, you're gonna stop it. For example, you are waiting for something, and as soon as you get that signal, you stop that one. And then the last one is, we call it as a do while loop. Okay, so it basically, it means where I want to run a loop at least once, and there are few variation of it. For example, for the for loop, there is a new variation, right? But we're going to cover those as well. Okay, so that's give you some of the core understanding is what are loops, why we use those loops, right? Now I'm gonna open the editor. I'm gonna give you a quick example of some of these loops just to give you or set that context, and we're gonna cover all these, like for example, for loop, while loop, and do while loops in their individual videos. Okay, let's take a quick look into a while loop. So let's say I have to print a simple number, or how many times a loop is increment or running, I have to print that one, right? So let's say I is equal to 1, and then I will say while I is less than, let's keep it as 5 for now, and I will say system.out .println, right? Println, okay, and I will only simply print it here, and I will say plus plus. Okay, so there are multiple things is going on. This is what we talked about, the initialization of a loop. I am saying, okay, start from number 1, that is your starting point. All right, this is my condition which says keep on doing this loop or keep on doing this work until you meet this condition which says when I is less than equal to 5. Okay, so it will break exactly when I is equal to 5. Now this is something, think about, this is your logic. You can do any logic. It's a simple print statement, but you can run any logic. For example, if there is a user input coming out and you want to process that one, so you can process that user input, like going through each and every input and then processing it, right? And this is last part of my loop statement, which we talked about, the increment. So basically you are going one step ahead at a time, right? That's how it works. So until the condition is no longer true, this will keep on increasing. And what is going to happen is, if I run this program, right, it's going to print this I as 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all. There are a few things, common mistakes which happen while you are using a loop. For example, loop can end up into an infinite loop. That means if your condition is wrong, it will keep on running. So eventually what is going to happen is it will basically gonna run out of the memory, because what happened, if you keep on running the program, it will keep on using that computer memory, and at one point of time it will say, hey, I don't have left any other memory. So it will say, okay, out of memory, and your system will stop, or means your program will stop ultimately. So you have to be careful, and we will gonna talk about those one, but these are some of the few things which we have to be careful. So just to recap, I think loops help you repeat code without writing the same line over and over again. They make your program smarter, cleaner, and more efficient. And on a high level, we have 3 different type of loops in Java. Number 1, for loop. Number 2 is while loop. And then we have a do while loop. You don't need to memorize anything just yet. Okay, just understand the concept. In our next video, I'm gonna talk about the for loop, and I will walk you through how it works in a real life example. If you like this video and if you like this series, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. Thanks for watching again. Until next time, happy coding.